Good morning. I just want to make a note that room 307 is open for overflow, and it looks like we are about to get started. The Economic Development and Small Business Committee on Housing will come to order. Would the clerk please call the roll?
Chair Grant?
Here.
Representative Stevendorf?
Yes, here.
Scott?
Present.
Andrews? Cerniglo?
Here.
Aragona? Zorn? Fink? DeBoyer? Madam Chair, you have 4 members present. You do not have a quorum.
Okay, well, we are going to get started with, hold on. We're going to get started with testimony on House Bill 5238. We have Representative Wilson here to testify in support of his bill. Welcome.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Do you have anyone who you would like to join with you?
They'll be coming up afterwards.
Okay.
Unless they're coming up afterwards.
Okay, perfect.
Thank you, Madam Chair, for allowing me to speak on my bill today. And pull up my notes here. And thank you, committee members, for hearing me out today about eviction expungement. Very important topic, something that we need to have in place. We have a lot of residents, a lot of constituents in our districts that are, they have evictions that are really holding them back from finding housing. We already understand our housing crisis as it is, and this is just another piece to the puzzle of trying to address our housing issues. And these evictions are lingering and holding people back from really being able to get their next place to live in. So the crux of House Bill 5238, here's the highlights of the bill. Notices that don't result in evictions will be expunged after 1 year automatically. When we're talking about notices, when a landlord gives a notice for eviction, probably 75% of evictions that are hanging up on people's records, they were actually able to rectify the issue prior to actually being evicted in the first place. But the notice is still on their records. And so it's really not fair that they actually didn't get evicted, but it looks like there's an eviction on their record. So we want to get that immediately, automatically expunged after 1 year of the notice. Also in the bill, there's an exception for any tenant who has had 3 or more evictions in 36 months. They would not be eligible for expungement. Court, after 7 years, automatic expungement of evictions. There are some exceptions that we have negotiated after working with stakeholders. Those exceptions would be if the tenant is found causing any serious and continuing health hazard or injury to the property, damage to the property. Also, if the tenant causing bodily harm to another person on the premises. Also, a tenant taking or holding possession by force or trespassing. And also, a tenant involved in illegal drug activity. I want to highlight this. Obviously, one exception there is actually around cannabis, marijuana, because here in the state of Michigan, we have statutes in place now for that. So that is already actually covered under the statute that it highlights in the bill. And that is actually the bulk of the bill right there. So you probably hear from, you probably already heard from constituents about how these evictions are really holding them back from finding more housing. So I'm glad you were able to hear me out today and take up the testimony, Madam Chair. I'll turn it back over to you for any questions from committee members.
Thank you very much. Do we have any questions? Okay. Well, we do have several individuals who have placed in cards and would like to speak on the bills. I am going to call up 3 individuals at a time, so if you all could come join each other together. We have Gregory Keeler from We the People, who would like to speak in support. And Rep. Wilson, I want to make sure that I also have the individuals that you designated to speak. So is this, I want to make sure that I call them first.
They're pretty much from We the People
Okay,
anyway. So.
perfect. All right. I have Jonathan Evans from The Rent is Too Damn High, and Yvonne Navarrete, I'm sorry if I mispronounced that, from We the People as well. Can you join us, please? Yeah. Thank you. Yes, please. We're going to call people, and if you can just join us swiftly, I want to make sure everyone has an opportunity to speak.
Hi, my name is Jonathan.
Thank you.
Am I
I was going to say, if you can state your name.
Certainly, my name is Jonathan Evans. I'm a Lansing resident. I've also worked as a housing case manager and a direct care worker with unhoused youth in the Lansing area. As a case manager, I found that clients of mine were elderly, had 20-year-old evictions, and were still being denied. And so that's absurd. I also just want to mention that on my drive in today, I saw someone sleeping on a sewer grate. And this is relevant to that. Thank you.
Good morning. My name is Yvonne Navarrete. I'm the policy director with We the People Action Fund. Our organization works with renters and houseless folks across the state of Michigan. We've been pushing a set of renters' rights and housing priority bills throughout this term. And in lieu of not being able to push legislation that brings the cost of rent down, we need to be able to pass the bills that will materially benefit our communities across the state. And this is one of the priorities that we want to see through. And we want the bills to remain as is. 2 years is already a long time for people to wait to not be discriminated against, to be able to access housing, and pushing for more will be a harm for our communities. Thank you.
Okay, next, can I have Rachel Udube? I'm sorry if I mispronounced that. And Marita Kai.
Hi there, my name is Rachel Udabi with We the People Action Fund, and I'm also here to speak on the benefits of House Bill 5238, eviction expungement. As you know and have heard from a couple of my colleagues already, I think that to ensure that folks can be able to access housing and not be unfairly discriminated against or retaliated against by landlords, we need to have eviction expungement. There have been many examples that we have heard directly from our organizers and the folks that they are working with directly across the state that people are getting targeted by their landlords who are frustrated that, they want maintenance issues done, and they will file for eviction if a renter is withholding money because these maintenance issues have not been fixed. And that is not only unfair, but it also further hinders or it further leads to the housing crisis. So thank you.
Thank you for providing this public comment. My name is Marita Key. I'm part of the policy team with We the People, but I'm also here to speak as a resident and renter. I think last year I was renting in Ypsilanti, and tell me why I'm paying for a 600 square feet apartment that was $1,300, and I'm dealing with roaches. And mind you, this $1,300 goes towards the base rent, not including any junk fees included as water or trash removal, which is basic that the landlord should provide. And I did everything that was within my resources to contact the health department to come in, check out the apartment, and the landlord, the property manager at the time, was requesting to have the roaches and pest control, but this was an ongoing issue. And if I was to withhold my rent, I would be served with an eviction notice, and this was something that I was not interested or I didn't want on my record, so I was forced to pay $1,300 for this really shitty apartment. And I did not live there, but I did not want to have an eviction on my record. And I also appreciated Jimmy, the Representative Wilson, who sponsored this bill, highlighting the fact that this is something the majority of the tenants would benefit, and most of these people have good intention. They're not here to destroy the properties and or anything. They just want like basic things, and I think like most of the time this sort of bill would protect like tenants who want accountability from landlords who have too much power, and knowing in this economy that we're living in, most things are super expensive. Housing is a basic necessity. The weather is getting warmer. The winter is awful. No one should sleep outside, and the summer is also like super, super hot. And I think this is something so basic that you have the power to move and push forward to the floor. So I urge you all to approve of this and move it forward to the floor. Thank you all so much.
Thank you both. Can I have Sean Brock and Diego Vasquez join me?
Sean Brock is not here today,
Okay, thank you.
but there was comment written on his card.
Okay, we will make sure that that is in the record. Can Stacy Jackson join us, please?
Hi, I'm Diego Vasquez Salgado with We the People Action Fund. I'm a renter and a resident in Detroit, Southwest Detroit. And yeah, I would like to have some support from you guys on these bills. This bill specifically, it's really important for me as a renter and as someone who has a lot of family members who are renters and community members who are renters. Yeah, we just need any support and all support we can get. As renters, it's really hard to be able to maintain yourself as I do. And yeah, I've been a renter for 3-4 years now. And yeah, we could just use some help with any alleviation we can get on renting. Like some people were already sharing, we're living in very tough times right now economically, and we could just use any support we could get on making it easier to survive in these times. That's all.
Thank you very much. I don't think Stacy Jackson joined us, but I also have Angela Wilson. Is Angela here? She's not present. Okay, so next we will have Erica Farley from the Rental Property Owners Association.
Good morning. I want to thank the chair and committee members for allowing me to testify this morning on House Bill 5238. My name is Erica Farley. I am the executive director for the Rental Property Owners Association. Right now, the association is opposed to the bill as introduced. We have several concerns about the length of time for the expungement and ensuring that property owners have the ability to do the background checks, including with the other bill that is on the agenda today, to make sure that they know who are in their properties and the protection of their other tenants, including if someone is unable to pay their rent or is not paying their rent, how that may raise the cost of rent for their other residents. We are working with the sponsor of the bill and have talked about several amendments, and we appreciate that the sponsor is willing to do so, and we continue to work with the sponsor on how we feel like we can tighten up some of these timelines and making sure that the bill not only serves residents in the way that the bill is intended, but it also serves everyone as a whole. I talk about housing being a circle, and we want to make sure that that circle is not broken and all residents are served. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next, I have some cards to read in. We have Jamia Davis, who is in support of the bill but not wishing to speak. We have Lisa Sadler in support of the bill but not wishing to speak. Stephen Wallace in support of the bill and not wishing to speak. Nia Wells, Ross Fisher, and these individuals are with We the People. Kyle Richard, Madeline Elliott, who is with The Rent is Too Damn High. Also William Lawrence with that group. Anva Sudstrom, sorry if I mispronounced that. Shaniqua Dickinson with We the People. Kasia Erickson, Eli Day, April Isles, Alex Claves, and Maria Mata, all of those individuals with We the People, all in support of the bill and not wishing to speak. And then also not wishing to speak in opposition of the bills, we have Dawn Crandall from Home Builders Association, John Lindley from Manufactured Housing, Brad Ward with Michigan Realtors, Alex Morris with Michigan Bankers, Tim Langholz with NFIB, and Jim Kirsch with Property Management Association of Michigan. Once again, not wishing to speak in opposition of the bill. Rep. Wilson, if you can join us, I do believe we have a few questions, and we will start with Representative Fink.
Thanks, Madam Chair. Thanks, Rep. Wilson. I'll try to keep eye contact around this big chair here. Listen, I got a question that's really, it's a technical question. I'm a little confused about the language here because the opening section of the bill says that this applies in cases that are summary proceedings for termination of tenancy of residential property. And then later, it refers to the subsection of the Revised Judicature Act, which deals with non-payment of rent cases, which normally we don't talk about as termination of tenancy cases, because if you make a demand for non-payment of rent, the tenant can satisfy that demand either by moving or paying rent, meaning the landlord doesn't have an innate right to terminate the tenancy as long as the tenant does pay the rent. So I'm just a little confused as to whether this act would apply only to termination of tenancy cases or also non-payment of rent cases.
So you're talking about the notices. At the beginning of my testimony, I was talking about how when a landlord gives a notice of eviction, the tenant has a period of time to rectify that, but that notice still lingers on their record. It's still public, like it's an eviction. However, they took care of it, and they were actually never evicted in the first place. And so that's the first part of it, making sure we automatic expunge that after 1 year, those notices. The second part you talked about, I think is probably at the end of the whole procedure, right? Is that what you were referring to?
Well, no, not really. I'm asking really about the initial. So if you haven't paid your rent on the first of the month, and that's when it was due, then on the second of the month, your landlord can give you a demand for possession, which gives you 7 days to either pay your rent or move. And if you don't pay the rent, then they can file the case after that, after those 7 days are over. You can also give somebody, let's say, who's overstayed their lease, a notice to quit because you're terminating their tenancy because they're past the time of their lease. And those are different court actions. Mm-hmm. You have to file a different complaint. You have to state different things in the complaint. you have to provide a different, in one case it's called a demand for possession, in another case it's called a notice to quit. Is this intended to apply to all forms of summary proceedings for possession of property, including non-payment of rent cases? That's really the fundamental question.
The main piece is the non-payment of rent. We stayed away from, we have some exceptions that we're going to have in a sub as far as, when you're evicted for damage of property, illegal drug activity, things like that. We're just specifically talking about non-payment of rent. Is what this bill is trying to address.
Okay, and then if I could just ask one follow-up question, Madam Chair. What records are you intending to set aside, and do you intend for like the court file to become non-public? Is that the idea, is that the judgment will be set aside? Obviously, if there was an order of eviction, I assume, I guess what I'm saying is it's not totally clear to me from the language of the statute exactly which documents are being set aside, if it's in addition to the judgment itself, and then what happens to it? Does it become a non-public court case?
Once the judgment has been satisfied, then they can apply for expungement, and then obviously it would be non-public if it gets expunged.
Okay, when you say satisfied, does that mean that if it were a non-payment case, the tenant would have had to have paid the rent even afterward? Like even if they'd leave, do they have to have paid the rent?
If that was a part of the judgment where they need to satisfy what was owed, then that's what we're talking about.
So it would apply to both judgments for possession and money judgments?
Possession and money, yes,
Okay.
that's correct.
Okay, I'm going to be honest. I don't think that the statute says, or the draft says a lot, the bill we're looking at says a lot of what you're saying. What you're saying to me makes more sense, honestly, Rep. Wilson, than what I'm reading. But that's something that maybe, if you want to, you could talk to LSB about. Because in my view, what you said is clearer than what the bill says.
I got you.
Thank you.
Yep.
I am thinking that the rep may also want to just make a note that there are ongoing clarifications of language that may be added.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. We're still working with all stakeholders to tighten up the language, kind of like you highlighted, because it's not as clear as it needs to be. Obviously, we know what the intention is here, but we want to make sure it's clear. So we're still working with stakeholders to make sure we tighten up this language.
Thank you. Do we have any other questions? All right. Okay, it looks like we do have one more card and comment. Excuse me, I'm just going to say Kelsey from the rent is too damn high.
Is it on now? Okay, cool. Thank you for taking this extra time to listen to me. Earlier this year, I was facing eviction for back rent. I was in a situation where I didn't feel comfortable asking for extra funds from my family due to family dynamics, which I know is a very common issue. And a lot of my friends behind me started GoFundMe, and that's the only way I was able to stay in my apartment. It wasn't any government funding. It wasn't any resources. It was just my friends. And that should not be the case. That's ridiculous that those funds were not available. But this is going to follow me because I paid my rent immediately. Like, I was able to pay it past the court date that it was initiated. And that's still in my record, right? I didn't have the resources I needed to as an individual, and so I had people come around me, which is awesome. But the fact is Whitmer really focuses on home ownership and the fact that people will be able to own a home one day. We need to focus on renters' rights now, the people who will be renting for a significant amount of time or just in general. But the rent is too damn high. And this is an issue that many people face. I've talked to people who have had eviction bills, the back rent of like $600, and that follows them for years and years. And every type of marginalized identity, might not have access to resources. Because I am a community organizer, knew who to call and who to talk to, but even I was not able to, get those resources until I did a GoFundMe, right? And so I know that I'm not alone in my story. I've also lived at places previously where there was rats in the walls, or I had a mice infestation. The fact is that right now, rent is not like, people are not getting what they pay for. They might be paying a super high bill, but they're getting a roach infestation. They're dealing with mold, with flooding, with noisy neighbors that are not willing to cooperate. I mean, there's so many things. You're not getting what you're paying for, right? And housing is a human right. Everyone deserves to have a safe, warm place to sleep at night. That is a fundamental human right. And so the rent is too damn high. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your comment. Okay, now I need a motion to refer House Bill 5238 to the Committee on Economic Development and Small Business. Representative Devendorf moves. Madam Clerk, will you please call the roll?
Chair Grant,
Yes.
Representatives Devendorf,
Yes.
Scott,
Yes.
Andrews,
Yes.
Cerniglu,
Yes.
Aragona, Zorn,
No.
Fink,
No.
DeBoyer.
No.
Madam Chair, you have 5 yeas, 3 nays, 0 pass. The motion passes.
Thank you very much. All right, thank you. Next, I need a motion to refer House Bill 4878 to the Economic Development and Small Business Committee. Rep. Scott moves. Clerk, can you please take the roll?
Chair Grant,
Yes.
Representatives Devendorf,
Yes.
Scott,
Yes.
Andrews,
Yes.
Cerniglu,
Yes.
Aragona, Zorn,
No.
Fink,
No.
DeBoyer.
No.
Madam Chair, you have 5 yeas, 3 nays, 0 pass. The motion passes.
Thank you. And Representative Andrews moves to adopt the meeting minutes from November 14th. The meeting minutes from November 14th are adopted. And finally, Representative Cerniglu moves to excuse absent members. In that motion, there being no objection, the motion prevails, and there being no more business before the committee will stand adjourned.